Everybody, Jason Burmis here, and just about everybody in the so-called truth community is now talking about the document that you see behind me. I did a small little walk and talk last night after I learned of it. And yes, it is extremely important. Yes, it does have to be talked about. But no, it's nothing new to me. I knew this was the game plan from the get-go. As soon as I woke up to the truth about 9/11, I actually looked what was inside the Patriot Act and the Military Authorization Act that they're still using to fight Al-Qaeda. Oh, did I say that? Am I anti-government? Am I an extremist? Those words are used a lot. But conspiracy theorist is used a lot in this document. And the United Nations is used a lot in this document. And the New World Order is used a lot in this document. And the term Zionist is used in this document. Now, I've talked about all those subject matters. And when you talk about a New World Order, I mean, guys, I am one of the people out there that put one of the biggest movies out there, Invisible Empire, A New World Order Defined. Now, when I discuss it, is it a problem? Is it a problem when Gordon Brown, the UK Prime Minister at the time, talks about it, or Cameron, or George H.W. Bush, etc., etc.? And there's a lot of problems with this document. We're going to read the whole thing, okay? It's 15 pages, but a lot of that's source material, and then there's actually a questionnaire at the end. You know I don't like to come in cold and just report on things. And another thing, of course, that's mentioned is, Pizzagate and Sandy Hook. They don't mention 9/11, I believe, which, I don't know whether that's because the FBI, at least at this point, is hip to the fact that a lot of that is true. That when I talk about the Pakistani ISI funding, when I talk about the dancing Israelis, Amdocs, Converse, when I talk about Khalid al-Mihdhar and others living with and renting from an FBI informant, when I talk about the CIA being called on Walid al-Shari and others prior to 9/11 and nothing being done, those are facts. Okay? Now, another disturbing thing in this thing is, people like me who are called researchers or investigators, no, we're potential terrorists now. We're potential terrorists. There's a high likelihood of that. Although some, but not all, will take part in this violent behavior. They have now classified a full group of people as terrorists. And I believe it was Yahoo that broke the story. QAnon is another huge thing. You just can't stop these things, man. QAnon's in this as well. You know how I feel about that. We're not going to be going deep, but I certainly don't think believers in that theory should be classified as terrorists. Okay? So with that being said, let's do it. Let's read the document and break it on down. Because that's what we do here. We don't speculate. Okay? And that's what really bothers me about this. It's like, am I going to get the acknowledgement that I am a researcher? Are you bad for watching this? And by the way, they talk about how they have sources inside and then people that don't have firsthand knowledge of this that are gathering information. It's very bizarre at parts. So let's do it. So like I said, this is a law enforcement sensitive but unclassified document. Now I want to make it clear, I believe this goes all the way to January 30th, 2019. So this report, if you will, was put together about 6 or 7 months ago, or tried to be assembled, and it was released right before June 1st, so a couple months ago. Anti-government, identity-based, and fringe political conspiracy theories very likely motivate some domestic terrorists or domestic extremists to commit criminal, sometimes violent activity. I have never preached violent activity. Let's see. Bogus Hype, thank you for the super chat. You're saying this page intentionally left blank. I'm not sure. I know, like I said, there is a page that may be blank and it might be redacted. I believe there is some talk of a possible redaction in here. Let's see. Law enforcement sensitive. Okay, this information marked ULES in this document is the property of the Federal Bureau of Investigation and may be distributed within the federal government and its contractors, U.S. intelligence, law enforcement, public safety, or protection officials, and individuals with a need to know distribution beyond these entities without FBI authorization is prohibited. So again, they weren't supposed to get this, but because it's not classified, it's in the hands of a lot of people. It probably wasn't that top. It was a joke. Sorry, bogus. Bogus hype. I'm trying to remain as focused on this as possible. I appreciate the super chats, brother. Precautions should be taken to ensure this information is stored and or destroyed in a manner that precludes authorized or unauthorized access. Sorry, didn't work out for you. Information bearing the LES caveat may not be used in legal proceedings without first receiving authorization from the originating agency. So what they're telling you is, even though this leaked and maybe you want to sue because, hey, you've been classified as a terrorist, no mas. No. You have to actually clear that with the FBI, who would probably never clear it. Recipients are prohibited from subsequently posting the information marked LES on a website on an unclassified network without first obtaining FBI approval. I'm sure that was not the case here. Domestic extremists employ a number of indicators, some of which may be criminal, and others of which may constitute the exercise of rights guaranteed by that pesky First Amendment of the Constitution. So right there, pretty much in the opener, after the legalese, they admit that these domestic terrorists might be using that pesky Constitution and First Amendment to be doing this stuff. The FBI is prohibited from engaging in investigative activity for the sole purpose of monitoring the exercise of constitutional rights. Then what are you doing here? Talk about a paradoxical statement right there. It's exactly what you're doing to most of us. I'm not violent. I've never preached violence. I want a reformation of the Constitution and Bill of Rights. Okay? That's what I'm about. A judicial, executive, and legislative branch that truly has checks and balances. Not a national security slave state where everything's classified and every enemy under the sun is labeled a terrorist. Okay? Remember, every enemy combatant overseas is just a military-age male, 16 or older. You're an enemy combatant. And remember, they're all terrorists too. And now, the domestic terrorists are conspiracy theorists. The FBI assesses anti-government, identity-based, and fringe political conspiracy theories very likely. So they use that a lot. Very likely motivate some domestic terrorists, wholly or in part, to commit criminal and sometimes violent activity. People commit criminal activity every day. That's why we have law enforcement. That's why Live PD is one of the biggest shows on television. The FBI further assesses, in some cases, these conspiracy theories very likely encourage the targeting of specific people, places, and organizations, thereby increasing the likelihood of violence against these targets. Bum, bum, bum. You can't be trusted as an adult with real information because you might get violent. And by the way, a couple times in this document, they admit that some of these conspiracy theories against elitists and big corporations have turned out to be true. Oh, and that's bad because that gives people like me footing on exposing things that haven't been exposed before. Talk about Orwellian speak. These assessments are made with high confidence. And by the way, they'll give you a little chart on what high confidence, low confidence, et cetera, is after you get the source material in this document. Based on information from other law enforcement agencies, open source information, aka a bunch of bullshit, political papers, and Snopes is cited in this a ton. You know, Snopes has never gotten anything wrong. Court documents, human sources with varying degrees of access and corroboration, and FBI investigations. But wait a minute. These FBI investigations, I thought that they didn't take place before this, especially if these people were just exercising their constitutional rights and their First Amendment rights. Seems odd. Let's continue. One key assumption driving these assessments is that certain conspiracy theory narratives tactically support or legitimize violent action. They don't give any kind of specifics here. You notice there's no citation after that? Please tell me the conspiracy theories that legitimize violent action. I'd like to know. The FBI also assumes some, but not all individuals or domestic extremists. So now individuals or domestic extremists. So anybody or someone that we've already deemed a domestic extremist who holds such beliefs will act on them. So you could just be anybody. The FBI assesses these conspiracy theories very likely will emerge, spread, and evolve in the modern information marketplace. Ooh, because they know they haven't been able to stop real information, and more people are hip to their lies than ever. Occasionally, driving both groups and individual extremists to carry out criminal or violent acts. That's like saying people occasionally speed down the freeway, okay? It's ridiculous. I mean, again, if we're going to go into criminal activity, a lot of these people that are supposedly extremists are also very mentally ill. It's the fact that they're actually crazy, that they're on meds, that they're on psychotropic drugs, that they're smoking meth in the case of and they cite this case. They don't cite the meth, but that debacle with Semtex and the supposed camp, et cetera, et cetera. And I mean, that's still prolific today, and I've only seen pretty good debunkings, and I know that even Chuck Sawyer, who was kind of a part of that, has denounced it. He did like an hour-plus long broadcast explaining that. So let's continue here. Let's see. Indicators that may lead to revised judgments or cause a change in the confidence level associated with the assessment include a lack of conspiracy theory-driven criminal or violent activity in the near to long term, or significant efforts by major social media companies and websites, here it is, to remove, regulate, or counter potentially harmful conspiratorial content. Okay, so right there, that's about the only time that they reference the big tech companies. And notice they don't reference them by name, Twitter, Google, Facebook, none of that. But remove, regulate, and counter potentially harmful content. If you want to do a search right now of Jason Burmis and click on one of my videos, over on the right-hand side, all the suggested videos, the majority of which will be Fox News, et cetera, CNN, or approved sources, authoritative content. Yet, when I click on a Fox News video, maybe to see some Tucker Carlson and Tulsi Gabbard, since he's the only one talking about how a sitting member of Congress can no longer take out Google ads for her campaign because she's destroying the competition in the debates and is forced to sue. Side note, they're, websites, they're removing, they're regulating and countering potentially harmful conspiratorial content by a sitting congresswoman and one of 20 running for the president of the United States in the Democratic Party. No big deal, but anyway, if I go there, what's on the recommended side? Nothing but Fox News. I think there was one video outside the purview of Fox News, and it was guest starring a Fox News anchor or one of their people. And here we go. So you can see the appendix defining conspiracy theories. You can start going through expressions of likelihood and assessments and judgments. And those are the separate pieces we're going to be looking at in this bulletin. There's a little repetition right here, but it lets you know that these come from varying degrees of access. Okay, so this is important. This is when they start talking about the intelligence they've collected through different sources and how reliable they are, because they have indirect access. So in other words, they're using their own researchers. I mean, there seem to be some people on the inside of maybe some of these cases, but it's so vague you'll never understand. And this is now an 11-plus year investigation. Let me repeat that. They've been doing this for 11 years, and they're saying that this is the first FBI investigation into it. How is that possible if this is an 11-year investigation? This investigation actually started before I even put Invisible Empire out. In fact, before I put Fabled Enemies out. Shortly after Loose Change Final Cut hit the marketplace. Just to put it out there. Reporting from other law enforcement agencies and open source information was deemed the most critical in supporting the key analytic judgments in this paper. News articles provided contextual details of various incidents and background on specific conspiracy theories not contained in law enforcement reporting, while academic publications aided in clearly defining the topic, limiting the scope of the paper, and developing the key analytic judgments. Documentary sources consisting of plea agreements, a court of appeals opinion, a criminal complaint, and an indictment provided additional details concerning the incidents discussed, including the charges brought against the perpetrators and, in some cases, the conspiracy theory-based motives of their actions. Damn these conspiracy theories! Let's continue down the line here. The use of reporting derived from human sources in FBI investigations was limited, Although these sources did provide intelligence that corroborated open source information. Oh, here comes the open source information. Here comes the establishment Johnny nonsense. Here come the academic papers and the articles written by those journalists in the mainstream that we can just trust, those academics that we can trust. They've never lied to us. They've never skewed it. Human sources included an established human source with indirect access, so not on the inside. Much of whose reporting since 2014 has been corroborated. No name. A liaison source with indirect access, so another person, no real access. A limited history of reporting and extensive knowledge of domestic extremist groups throughout the United States. And a member of the public with indirect access. Indirect access. Where's all the real direct access in this investigation? Reporting for the first time, whose reliability cannot be determined. So one of these indirect access sources, they can't even verify whether we should really listen to them. The intelligence encompassed within this intelligence bulletin was collected between November 13th and January 2019, and is current as of the 31st of January 2019. Now, I think that's specifically to that last source, as in the beginning it talks about a 2008 investigation. So let's continue on. Anti-government, identity-based fringe political conspiracy theories very likely motivate some domestic extremists to commit criminal and violent acts. All right? So let's see. This assessment is based on events in which individuals commit crimes, plotted attacks, or successfully carried out deadly violence, and who, either before or after their arrest, attributed their actions to their conspiratorial beliefs. These events include instances in which the perpetrators intended to kill groups identified by such theories as hostile and malevolent, or to simply carry out dangerous, unlawful acts in an effort to draw attention or expose a perceived conspiracy. So now here we go. All right. Now here's part of the things that we're not allowed to talk about. On the 19th December 2018, a California man was arrested after being found in possession of bomb-making materials with the intent to construct an explosive device, according to information obtained from a law enforcement agency. According to the information obtained from a separate law enforcement agency, the individual stated he planned to travel to Springfield, Illinois, and blow up a satanic temple monument at the Illinois Capitol Rotunda in order to make Americans aware of Pizzagate and the New World Order, who were dismantling society. I've never called for violence. That sounds pretty insane to me. I don't know why you'd want to put a bomb anywhere. I don't know much about the case, but I know that people have been talking about a quote-unquote New World Order since the turn of the century. And another person that liked to talk about a New World Order was Hitler. And I have a section of that in my film. Is that bad of me to point out? Okay, so let's continue on. On the 27th of October 2018, an identified individual killed 11 people and injured several others at the Tree of Life Synagogue in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania, according to a criminal complaint filed by the U.S. District Court. According to a copy of his social media postings obtained via open source, shortly before the attack, the individual reposted a cartoon depicting the Zionist occupation government conspiracy theory and stated that the Hebrew Immigrant Aid Society likes to bring invaders in that kill our people. I can't sit by and watch my people get slaughtered. Screw your optics. I'm going in. Now, first of all, to kill people at a synagogue randomly does yourself no service, and this man is insane. Okay, so now I'm not allowed to talk about Zionism within our government, and the fact that Mike Pompeo, for instance, the Secretary of State and the former head of the CIA, has been up before AIPAC and said that anti-Zionism is anti-Semitism, when in fact, when you look at what Zionism is, it's like an extension of the neocon agenda of taking over all of that Eurasian region, dominating it. Okay, it's a political agenda. It has nothing to do with a race or religion. I mean, you could talk about religious Zionism, et cetera, but can I? Is that wrong? Am I going to be associated with some maniac that killed a bunch of people? I'm concerned about the military action that's taking place in Syria, in Yemen, on the Gaza Strip. I actually want less violence there. Am I bad for saying that? Am I on the terrorist list? Please, anybody with any kind of sensibility out there, listen to what I'm saying to you. This is madness. On June 15th, June 2018, a Nevada man used an armored truck to block traffic on the Hoover Dam bypass bridge, held up signs conveying a political demand, then fled into Arizona, where he was arrested by Arizona Department of Public Safety, who found body armor, rifles, ammunition, and flashbang devices inside the vehicle, according to law enforcement information. Now, I have no idea what the political demand was. I should look up this case. It is cited. But he didn't look like he killed anybody. According to a technical source with direct access, the man referenced the QAnon conspiracy theory directly and discussed related conspiratory beliefs after his arrest. According to an online news source deemed reliable, he sent letters from jail containing a distinctive QAnon slogan to President Trump and other officials, claiming he wanted to expose government corruption and lies. And again, everybody knows how I feel about that. What can I say? I'm not exactly sure what the guy did. I don't think he should be blocking traffic. I don't think anybody should be blocking traffic, and he should be arrested for that criminal activity. And I don't think that people that believe in QAnon should be labeled terrorists. Let me make that extremely clear. On the 27th of October, 2016, 2 men were arrested in Georgia on drug charges and found to be stockpiling weapons, ammunition, and other tactical gear in preparation to attack the government-funded research facility in Alaska known as the High Frequency Activity Auroral Research Program, HAARP. Now, HAARP is real, and it does affect the weather. No one's saying they're using it to affect the weather in the States, et cetera, but that's what its purpose is. Now, am I allowed to talk about that, or now I'm going to be related to people that were ready to storm the place, said that it prevented humans from talking to God? That's in here. We're going to continue. Like total lunacy. Let's see. According to subject interviews by the Bureau of Alcohol, Tobacco, Firearms, and Explosives, the ATF, the men became upset after watching videos online about the imposition of martial law and other government conspiracies. Martial law is a problem. I don't like it when people like Alex Jones, for instance, call for martial law in this nation after exposing it for many years. I think that's a problem. I don't want martial law here. Am I bad? Is that bad? You know, there's been talk of it. Our freedoms are dwindling by the day. People who question authority are now openly being labeled terrorists, not just domestic extremists anymore, terrorists, next level. Now, does that mean I'm up for a drone strike? Huh? Just wondering. One of the men who claimed the government was using HAARP to control the weather and prevent humans from talking to God also made references to the United Nations invading America and sacrifices occurring at a New World Order church, according to the same source. So again, I'm one of the guys that brought you Invisible Empire, A New World Order Defined, wrote, directed, did a lot of graphics on that picture, etc., etc. Exposes the term, has a section on the United Nations. Am I bad for doing that? Everything in there is factual. Everything in there is factual. Is G. Edward Griffin not a researcher, not an author? On November 1st, 2013, an identified individual shot and killed one Transportation Security Administration, I remember this, officer and wounded several others at Los Angeles International Airport, according to an FBI investigation. Before the attack, the individual wrote a letter exposing his desire to kill TSA personnel who were associated with the New World Order, according to a plea agreement filed in the U.S. District. Now, I want to cut it back a little bit, okay? Just for a second. We're going to go right back to the document. I want to remind people, you know, one of the other big things right next to Invisible Empire, New World Order Defined, was myself and Ashley Jessica at the Albany Airport exposing the body scanners and the TSA. And the pat-downs before it was hip and cool many years ago, okay? Now, again, I don't encourage violence. Anybody that kills another human being or thinks that a TSA agent, I think making $12 or $13 an hour at the time, is somehow part of some vast conspiracy and deserves to die, is an insane person. Are they talking about what medications he had? Are they talking about his past mental history? No, they're talking about the New World Order. And I guess it's okay to talk about if you're Henry Kissinger, right? If you're Zbigniew Brzezinski, David Rockefeller, you're allowed to talk about it. but I might not be able to put them in a video that explains the different aspects of this term and the competing factions. I'm not allowed to do that, apparently, without being labeled a, not even a domestic extremist anymore, a terrorist, because a crazy person might do something after watching my video. Pretty nuts. But that's where we're at. Let's continue on. Anti-government, identity-based, and fringe political conspiracy theories very likely, this is it, very likely encourage the targeting of specific people, places, and organizations. And I'm pretty sure in here is another part where they admit that some of these conspiracy theories are true, but these aren't researchers or investigators. They're the scum of the earth. They're terrorists. They're into terror. The FBI assesses in some cases anti-government, identity-based, and fringe political conspiracy theories very likely encourage the targeting of specific people, places, and organizations, thereby increasing the risk of extremist violence against such targets. This assessment is based on several incidents where individuals threatened, assaulted, or plotted to attack entities they perceived as being linked or involved with an alleged conspiracy theory. This targeting occurs when promoters of conspiracy theories claiming to act as researchers or investigators single out people, businesses, or groups which they falsely accuse of being involved in the imagined scheme. It's like when I was talking about people like Jeffrey Epstein or people like Dennis Hassert that were involved in imagined schemes of molesting children. Wait, that's in the mainstream news. Oh, whoa. Businesses have never been corrupt either. I mean, Monsanto, they're not losing lawsuits all over the place, right? That's in my imagined scheme that they covered up the cancer-causing effects of Roundup and glyphosate. It's imagined. I'm in imagination land. These targets are then subject to harassment campaigns and threats by supporters of the theory and become vulnerable to violence or other dangerous acts. So let's continue on down. On the 29th of May, 2018, the leader of an unofficial local veterans aid group claimed to have discovered a child sex trafficking camp on privately owned land in Tucson, Arizona, according to two news sources of unknown reliability. After local law enforcement investigations discredited the claim, the leader repeatedly alleged a law enforcement cover-up and referenced the QAnon conspiracy theory as he and armed members searched for additional camps, according to multiple sources with varying degrees of access. And this is the meth head that I'm talking about. Literally somebody on meth that lied about his veteran status. Okay? Not talking about his methamphetamine stuff, is he? Not talking about that as a big motivation to his delusional behavior. No. In addition, the leader and the supporters accused specific residents, businesses, and local officials of aiding or participating in child sex trafficking, according to two sources with indirect access. The group also harassed, threatened, and doxed critics and opponents, according to multiple sources with varying degrees of access, and engaged in criminal activities, according to an indictment filed in the Arizona County Superior Court. Now, before we get to Sandy Hook, because I think that's important as well, I want to read a couple more of the super chats over here. Let's see. This has been done before. Remember NIAC. What's the NIAC? I totally forget. The National, you'd have to tell me what that is. FBI must have a file then on David Wilcock and his army of giant blue chickens. No idea what that is. I do know who Wilcock is, but he spreads a lot of nonsense. Port Film Co-op, thank you. And Tim Truth, everyone please research conspiracy against rights and deprivation of rights under color of law. Attacks on our rights are a serious crime. Yes, they are. But here we go. We're going to get into Sandy Hook right now. And before we get into Sandy Hook, I want to let people know and become aware of the fact that if you want a breakdown of a lot, not all, but a lot of the legitimate questions surrounding Sandy Hook, here it is. The Alex Jones deposition and deep research. Because he lost that lawsuit. I knew he was going to lose that lawsuit. I realized it's going to be put to the state Supreme Court, et cetera, et cetera. He perjured himself at least a dozen times, if not more, during that lawsuit deposition. And in that video, I break down where the actual questions about Sandy Hook and the evidence that we were lied to, at least about some of the things that went on there, are. And they don't involve, no dead children. I'm just going to leave it at that. But please, I'm begging you out there, before we get into the Sandy Hook stuff, there it is, the Alex Jones deposition and deep research. It is a must watch for anybody who wants to be taken seriously about that event. I promise you. I've been doing this a long time, guys, and I did plenty on this subject back in 2012 and 2013. Following the 2012 shooting at Sandy Hook Elementary School in Newton, Connecticut, conspiracy theorists who believe the shooting was a government hoax harassed and threatened family members of the slain victims, who they believe to be complicit, according to 2 online news sources deemed reliable. According to an investigation, a Florida woman was arrested and sentenced in 2017 for sending death threats to a victim's father, and a Brooklyn, New York man was arrested in November 2015 after harassing another victim's daughter and fleeing from police, according to an online news source of unknown reliability. And, again, I'm not going to go too far into that, but there are crazy people out there, guys. I remember like 3-4 years ago, I wasn't even really involved in this as much. I'd do an occasional radio spot or a post, but I wasn't doing videos, and I had somebody track me down at my current job that I posted on social media, I guess, where I was working, because I was working in a bar. And it was at like a party that we were throwing for some of the new people, et cetera, et cetera. And this insane person came up, knew who I was asking for my help, was trying to get in touch with InfoWars, had said he had been followed, had said someone was in his car afterwards while he wasn't there, and he knows because, the rear view mirror was moved, and I wasn't like that. Listen, psychosis exists. It does. On the 4th of December 2016, a North Carolina man was arrested in Washington, D.C. after he entered the Comet Ping Pong Pizzeria restaurant carrying an AR-15 rifle and a .38 revolver, fired shots at a locked closet door, and aimed his rifle at an employee. The man was motivated by the Pizzagate conspiracy theory, alleging that a child sex trafficking ring involving nationally known political figures was operating from inside the restaurant, according to a plea agreement filed in the U.S. District Court. So let's just briefly talk about this. I don't want to go too deep, but I will say this. There were obvious emails of coded language. There were references to people like Dennis Hassert, a serial pedophile, a serial child molester. I wouldn't want to get the term wrong. According to a U.S. judge just last year, type in Hassert, serial child molester. I'm not the one saying that. And our old buddy Denny, the proprietor of this establishment, Alephantis, had a disgusting, revolting Instagram with many questionable things related that were readily available on video in YouTube and other platforms. Let's just start there. Now, let's talk about this man and the AR-15 and the .38 revolver. He shot at a locked closet door, and lo and behold, although there's one video of Alephantis showing somebody the computer that was shot once through the top of the case. And I brought this up with debunker Mick West. Okay, he didn't really want to talk about this anymore. He's like, well, it obviously didn't go through the hard drive. I go, I know. It didn't go through the hard drive. Obviously. I know where the hard drive is. I can see it. It's not there. It didn't go through the hard drive. You're right, Mick. So why is it that hard drive was never investigated? And he's like, well, it wasn't supposed to be. You're predilecting. Then I show him the article where it says that it was the hard drive that was hit. And then I put him in touch with Big Fish. If you guys don't know who Big Fish is, let's bring up a little Big Fish for you. At Trey Bellion. I retweet a lot of his stuff. That's why I'm scrolling down my Twitter feed right now. There he is right there. Big Fish. He's done amazing work. Brian Telford, thank you so much for that super chat we're going to get to in a second. But he's done amazing work. And you know how he started? Well, he alleges that he actually got into that server and it was connected worldwide. And yeah, it did have the CP on it. And no one's ever talked about that. And what evidence did he provide? Well, how about his recorded conversations with the police officers that he brought it to that no one acknowledges? But remember, we couldn't go to that hard. Is that a conspiracy theory? Is the facts that I just told you, am I a terrorist? So that's all I'm going to say about, the P-Gate. You want to know about it? Contact my man, Trey Bellion. Big Fish. Does amazing work on that. Big ups to him. A person that does care about children. that does care about taking down these monsters. So again, very suspicious scenario there. We're going to get into this Islamberg in a second, but first I want to go to those couple super chats that I just got there. It was my act. That's right. I do remember that. Sorry, search Homeland Security reports, list liberty lovers as terrorists. Yes, I do remember the MIAC report. They are forcing conspiracy theorists behind a paywall. Creators like you will be forced to do their shows subscription-based in order to protect themselves. It's a strategy to control information. You know what? You may be correct, Brian Telford, and let me say this. I really do appreciate the super chats, but the way I'm actually getting by, and don't get me wrong, my YouTube is going up and up and up, but guys, as you can see, let's be real, every single one of my videos is demonetized, and then I have to go for manual review. So if you can support me on the GoFundMe, it's day 15 or day 16, I think, today. So we're actually at the halfway point. We're only a couple $100, maybe a few $100 behind the halfway point. We're going to get there, and I really appreciate it. If you're new to the channel, now's the time to subscribe, because this is one of those deep dives. This isn't a walk and talk. This isn't an interview. This isn't just a quick video about an article, although I think those are all great, and I hope that you enjoy them. This is the full document. A lot of YouTubers out there will read you the article, give you bits and pieces, but I'll spend the time, now 35 minutes deep, this will probably be an hour-long broadcast, going over the factual information in here. Why? Because they're the facts, man, and I shouldn't be labeled anything but a reporter or a researcher for this. On the 10th of April 2015, a Tennessee man was arrested for plotting to attack an Islamic community near Hancock, New York, known as Islamberg, according to the FBI investigation. According to a U.S. Court of Appeals, inaccurate news reporting about Islamberg had surfaced in recent years, including a story suggesting the community supported terrorism. The man became obsessed with Islamberg, believing that it was residents were plotting to attack New York City. And in February of 2015, he began attempts to recruit others to join the attack. I don't know much about that. I don't know how mobilized it was, and I don't know any kind of evidence. If anybody knows about that, DM me or something. Okay, here we go. Although conspiracy theory-driven crime and violence is not a new phenomenon, today's information environment has changed the way conspiracy theories develop, spread, and evolve. The advent of the internet and social media has enabled promoters of conspiracy theories to produce and share greater volumes of material via online platforms that larger audience of consumers can quickly and easily access. Here's the deal. Take away conspiracy theorists and put in Jason Burmis, and you bet your ass it can. You bet your ass. Because this article is less than 24 hours old. There's plenty of people that have commented on it. But how many people have actually brought you, the people, the document, and in 1080p, live, where you can interact with the audience? That's a problem to them. Do you understand? It's a real problem when you get to actually look at something other than a soundbite or fucking Jake Tapper telling you some bullshit about this. And I know I've kept the cursing down to a kind of a minimum this time, and I apologize for that one, but come on. You got to get fired up when you read this stuff. Based on the increased volume and reach of a conspiratorial content due to modern communication methods, it is logical to assume that more extremist-minded individuals will be exposed to potentially harmful conspiracy theories, except ones that are favorable to their views, and possibly carry out criminal or violent actions as a result. The internet has also enabled a crowdsourcing effect wherein conspiracy theory followers themselves shape a given theory by presenting information that supplements, expands, or localizes its narrative. That's every media organization that does that. And right now I am using the tool of YouTube, Google, a webcam, a PC, Photoshop, my skills as a broadcaster to bring you this information the best I can. I am. You got me. I'm using technology the way it's supposed to be used. If it were a hammer, I'd be building a house. But the problem is that house threatens the establishment, because then it can build more and more information. More of you are watching this. And God forbid you watch this and do something. You're not only a domestic extremist, you're a terrorist now. These examples also substantiate concerns expressed by some researchers who believe a rise of conspiracism, fostered in part by the internet, may be accompanied by a search for scapegoats, those believed to be the conspirators, allies, henchmen, or collaborators. So the guilty parties. We can't put the guilty parties in jail or on blast. We can't talk about the many associations of Epstein, no matter how large or small, right? That's bad. We got to stop it. This is the first FBI product examining the threat for conspiracy theory-driven domestic extremists and provides a baseline for future intelligence products. I don't believe that, by the way. And now that I'm questioning that, am I a conspiracy theorist? I think this is the first public document. Remember, it's unclassified. It's going all around to law enforcement. There's no way they could be investigating this for 11 years and believing they were doing it before that, okay, and not have produced some other kind of material on it. So I think that's Johnny nonsense as well. Analysis of alternatives. The FBI considered the alternative hypothesis that domestic extremists likely turn to violence. See, it's likely turn to violence. You know, they throw you in with domestic extremists, likely turn to violence. Remember, this is the alternative hypothesis. Only as a result of an underlying extremist ideology, such as militia extremism or white racially motivated violent extremism. Whereas conspiracy theory beliefs held by such extremists do not play a role in the mobilization of violence. So basically, what they're trying to say is, we looked at whether it was just white supremacists and militias, but we found out, no, it's definitely conspiracy theories too. The FBI deemed this alternative to be less likely, like I just told you, because the conspiracy beliefs have motivated, at least in part, several high-profile violent acts or have influenced the perpetrators to the extent that they attributed their actions to their conspiratorial beliefs before or after their arrests. In addition, academic research, the academic media, academic research indicates conspiracy beliefs are not only prevalent and influential in domestic extremist circles and among those with extreme political views, but often serve to magnify and exacerbate existing extremist sentiments. One indicator that would increase the likelihood of this alternative hypothesis is the absence or decrease in incidents over the long term in which domestic extremists engage in violent acts on the basis of their conspiracy beliefs. So if it stops happening, maybe we'll consider that conspiracy theorists aren't terrorists. Nonsense. And now they're going to start to get into the 2020 presidential election and how these conspiracy theories are going to take political tones and probably influence our elections. So we better act now. We better act now. The FBI assesses anti-government, identity-based, and fringe political conspiracy theories very likely will emerge, spread, and evolve in the modern information marketplace over the near term, fostering anti-government sentiment, promoting racial and religious prejudice. I love how they love throwing in the racism. I can't stand that. I want to spit at these people for it. But that's assault. Uh-oh, am I getting too violent? How about I just spit at the report? I wouldn't want to promote violence because I don't. I got nothing but love in my heart. But when you now subjugate me to the promotion of racial and religious prejudice as part of conspiracy theory-driven terrorism, I want to puke in my mouth. Increasing political tensions and occasionally driving both groups and individuals to commit criminal or violent acts. Notice that. It's both groups. And of course, what are they referring to? They're referring to the false left-right paradigm. Why? Because they're telling you that they'll lump you in with these terrorists too when you start believing the conspiracy theories. But hey, you know what? Conspiracy theory's okay. Russiagate's okay. I mean, are we bringing Mueller in? There's no collusion. Are we bringing Comey in? There's no collusion. That's a pretty big friggin' conspiracy theory they threw out there. And I know that Bob Barr and the IG reports going on, Jim Jordan just grilled Mueller and no one talked about it. But remember, they want a large encompassment of all people that they can label whatever they want. Because you're all potentially dangerous, okay? Because some conspiracy theories are highly partisan in nature. Here it is. Political developments, including those surrounding major election cycles, such as the 2020 presidential election, likely will impact the direction of these conspiracy theories and potential activities of extremists who subscribe to them over the long term. Another factor driving the intensity of conspiracy theorizing in the United States and the subsequent threat from conspiracy-minded extremists is the uncovering of real conspiracies. Here it is. Real conspiracies or cover-ups involving illegal, harmful, or unconstitutional activities by government officials or leading political figures. So right there, they're saying, you know what, it really sucks that a lot of the time this is true. Read this, okay? Read this. It really sucks that government officials and leading political figures totally do corrupt stuff and get caught. What are we going to do about that? That only boosts these conspiracy theorists. Indicators that these scenarios are emerging include disrupted plots or successful attacks against popular conspiracy theory targets, such as government facilities, synagogues, mosques, and partisan political figures. Additionally, the reports of a sudden rise in threats and unfounded accusations against a given individual or business may indicate impending conspiracy theory, crime, or violence. So, again, they actually tell you that some of this stuff is absolutely real, and then they flip it on the next thing to say this is a bad thing because people are going to get targeted. It's terrible when these people get caught. FBI National Standing Collection requirements, okay? So the intelligence bulletin was prepared for the Phoenix office. That's where it came out of. And most of this stuff here we go. So here's defining them, okay? So now we're going to talk about, I believe the New World Order is in here when we get down there. Zionist occupied government is in here. There's Muslims, Jews, right? Is that it? Or did we already do that one? No, there it is. There's the NW and UN stuff. That's right. So let's continue on. Let's before we get into this, let's get to this super chat. Mueller and the FBI deep state conspiracy theory of Russiagate only cost us all $25 million. No big deal when we get reparations for that. Hey, we can spend $25 million on a total hoax, right? And then we can spend less than $10 million on 9/11. With their official whitewash of the 9/11 Commission report. Again, ridiculous. Although many conspiracy theories appear benign or inconsequential, others create serious risks. Throughout history, such conspiracy theories have fueled prejudice, witch hunts, genocide, and acts of terrorism. Oh, by the way, false flags is in here too. So, the guy that exposes false flags all the time, he's a bad person. In the context of domestic extremism, or domestic terrorism, extremists often view the activities of alleged conspirators as an existential threat that can only be stopped through drastic or even violent means. The definitions and notes below are meant to inform discussions within law enforcement as they relate to potentially harmful conspiracy theories and domestic extremism. A conspiracy theory is an attempt to explain events or circumstances as the result of a group of actors working in secret to benefit themselves at the expense of others. So like when Bayer injected, people with hemophilia, thinning blood, and a problem, they can't clot, with factor VIII, an injectable, that had live HIV virus, and then they got caught, and then they took that and they put it into Japan and European supplies and made a profit there. That's a conspiracy theory, or is that a conspiracy? Because they worked in secret to benefit themselves. Wait a minute. You know what? Let's make sure an authoritative source said so, and that, millions were paid out to people, that didn't die. Let's just make sure, let's type that in. Bayer HIV factor VIII. Oh, blood money. Bears inventory of HIV contaminated blood, contaminated hemophilia blood products. There's factor VIII right there. The first two searches over on Google. Oh, the Bayer division knowingly sold HIV-infected products. The Guardian. Must be a conspiracy theory because it was a group of powerful people trying to make profits in secret. That's crazy. Conspiracy theories typically allege wrongdoing by powerful others. For example, public officials, business executives, or scientists. So scientists would have been involved in that, right? And business executives. And I would assume public officials found out. But now we're going to get to, or societally marginalized group. For example, Muslims or Jews. Oh, now we're going to make it about religion and race again. Okay, we're going to lump that in there. and are most prevalent among individuals with extreme political views. Some conspiracy theories point to weak circumstantial evidence, but ignore stronger evidence that would refute their claims. Yeah, a lot of the mainstream media conspiracy theories, such as Russiagate, do that. Thank you. Consequently, they are usually at odds with official or prevailing explanation of events. While a conspiracy theory refers to an allegation that may or may not be true, at least they give us that. Oh, it may or may not be true. A conspiracy is a true casual chain of events. Oh, it's casual. Oh, yeah, the real conspiracies, they only casually happen. What the? I can't, whoa. Real conspiracies involving illegal, anti-democratic, or harmful activities by high-level government officials and political elites have been exposed in the past, and it has been argued that such plots have encouraged conspiracism in society. So let's repeat that again. Here's the second time they admit conspiracies exist, but it's a real problem because it's encouraged conspiracism in society. Real conspiracies involving illegal, anti-democratic, or harmful activities by high-level government officials and political elites have been exposed in the past, and it has been argued that such plots have encouraged conspiracism in society. But before they were exposed, the people talking about them must have been conspiracy theorists because it may or may not have happened at that point. Therefore, they could be a domestic extremist or a terrorist threat. Or just a terrorist threat for telling people about that other domestic extremists may act on. This is fucking insane. Insane. Get out of here with this. Relying on the premises that nothing happens by accident, nothing is as it seems, and everything is connected, conspiracy theorists tend to view every bad outcome as the result of an intentional decision by an evil actor, dismiss disconfirming evidence as fabricated by the conspirators, and connect a wide range of seemingly unrelated occurrences to suggest a larger plot. Despite sharing key characteristics at times featuring similar themes and intersecting plots, conspiracy theories vary greatly in their scope. Some are narrowly focused on a particular event or set of events, whereas others suggest broad, expansive narratives that link multiple conspiracies in complex ways to portray a group of evil actors working to manipulate society on a global scale. So again, you really can't talk about roundtable groups, I guess. Can't talk about the CFR, can't talk about the United Nations, can't talk about the Bilderberg Group. That's a problem for me because that's exactly what those groups are. I mean, these think tanks. I guess we can't talk about the new Soros and Koch Foundation, the Quincy Institute to stop the Forever Wars, right? At least not in a bad way. They're all awesome. They're great for society. We should totally have billionaires meeting with the banking elite, the military-industrial complex elite, the political elite, and the entertainment elite, okay, as well as the media elite in secret so that they can decide what the fuck we're allowed to see and hear. That totally makes sense. Oh, prominent anti-government, identity-based, and fringe political conspiracy theories. So here we go, guys. Here we go. Here's the list. The conspiracy theories referenced in this intelligence bulletin have been categorized as anti-government, identity-based, or fringe political because they assert secretive malevolent acts either by allegedly hostile and tyrannical federal government, by racial, religious, or social minority groups, or by political opponents. So here it is. The New World Order, the NWO. And again, I'm the guy that brought you Invisible Empire, a New World Order Defined. You can see it for free. It's on my playlist. It's got about 11,000 views on this, but it's got over 5 million views over on Change the Channel. And there's another one with almost 1 million views. Plenty of people have seen this. Millions of people have seen this film. I don't know that they're domestic extremists or terrorists. But hey, let's believe the FBI, right? They've never lied to us. They've never done something against the people. NWO, a group of international elites, controls government, industry, and media organizations, instigates major wars, carries out secret staged events, and manipulates economies with the goal of establishing global rule. There's plenty of globalists out there that openly talk about all of those things. All of those things. Let's just talk right now about the creation of the EU and the Euro. Bilderberg has a large part in that, and that was a secretly staged event. What are you talking? And a manipulation of the economy and a goal of establishing a more global society and government of bureaucrats. That's what the EU elections are about. They're not about elections. They're about bureaucratic rule. The United Nations. Okay, now remember, the League of Nations had failed after World War I. The CFR had been created kind of like a think tank group that is still very powerful today. And the United Nations didn't come in until after World War II. And finally, speaking out against its power and its NATO alliances must be wrong. The UN is being used by a evil cabal to erode American sovereignty, strip away individual liberties, and bring foreign troops to American soil in order to replace democracy with global tyranny. I guess it's your view of tyranny, huh? But if somebody didn't want global tyranny and they were preaching that people use nonviolent methods to share information so we didn't have it, that must make them a terrorist. False flags. Can't talk about 9/11, can't talk about 7/7, can't talk about the USS Liberty attack, can't talk about the Gulf of Tonkin. The official story surrounding a given terrorist attack or mass shooting is a lie. The event was staged or conducted by government to justify encroachment on civil liberties. And by the way, again, we discussed Sandy Hook really quickly here. I want people to be aware that if you want real questions about that event, please go check out the Alex Jones deposition and deep research. That's a video that's only got less than 2,000 views. I think that's an important one. People should go check it out. It's definitely one people need to see. So let's continue on. We're actually almost through the document. Bear with me. We're almost an hour deep in this broadcast, but I'm sorry. I really just thought that this was one of the more important things that we had to do out there, okay? Zionist-occupied government. Jewish agents secretly control the governments of Western states and are conspiring to achieve world domination. Well, we have open Zionists within our government, in the administration. First of all, Trump is about as open a Zionist as you could get, okay? Saying that Jerusalem is the capital, relocating the embassy there, giving the Golan Heights region to Israel when no one else would dare do that. John Bolton, unapologetic Zionist. It's a political position. Joe Biden, unapologetic Zionist. It's a political position. Then you have the Secretary of State, who's the former CIA head, who laughs in front of an audience talking about how he lied, he cheated, he stole, and there were entire courses based around it. People laugh and applaud with him. Mike Pompeo, again, ex-head of the CIA, current Secretary of State, sits up there and says, hey, anti-Zionism, which is, again, an extension of globalism, an extension of the neocon agenda, an extension of taking over all of Eurasia for those interests, is anti-Semitism. That's ridiculous. Guys, I have plenty of Jewish friends, and I'm not just trying to, put that out there. Look at me, how diverse I am. I get sick when I see this stuff. When there is actual bigotry. It makes me ill. It really does. Like, it's so beyond the pale. It's funny because, I have some pretty good Hollywood contacts these days, and, everybody talks about the media, but I talked about a director friend that, I went to college with. He's in my fraternity. He's a really good buddy. We talk quite regularly, actually. He's Albanian. He's not even, it just, those kind of predispositions are nutty to me, and they're on a different league. But when we talk about Zionism, it's a whole different ballgame. Islamberg, again, I don't know much about this. The small Muslim community near Hancock, New York, known as Islamberg, is a terrorist training camp. Its residents, who pose as peaceful Muslims, are in fact Islamic radicals operating as a terrorist sleeper cell. Well, what about the actual Muslim camp that they found that was extremely suspect, that I did a little mini documentary on for We Are Change while I was working there? Remember that whole scenario? That was extremely bizarre, but it's not on this list. Weird. Can't talk about that one, all right? And like I said, you look at this, it's a lot of university papers, George Washington University. Here's Wikipedia. Remember, they use Snopes as a reference here. Pizzagate. And we already kind of talked about Pedogate and these emails and some of the really suspicious things out there that are real. And we talked about Big Fish and what he's done. Please go check that out. High-ranking Democratic officials are or were involved in child sex trafficking rings centered around Comet Ping Pong Pizza Restaurant in Washington, D.C. And, of course, QAnon, an anonymous government official known as Q, posts classified information online to reveal a covert effort led by President Trump to dismantle a conspiracy involving deep state actors and global elites allegedly engaged in an international child sex ring. So here you go. Like I said, Snopes. Let's continue. So here you go. These phrases used by the FBI, almost, no chance, very unlikely, unlikely. They give you the percentage points. Remember we talked about very likely, highly probable. That's 80 to 90%, almost certainly, likely. They didn't use a lot of this, except for when to say that, you know, these people weren't terrorists or they wouldn't cause violent acts. All right? So this is where they talk about the confidence level as high, medium, or low. And they have, you know, just again, high confidence, medium confidence, low confidence, et cetera, et cetera. And there is again, more sourcing. And at the end, there's like a little, hey, you want to fill this out for us? Was this, are you satisfied? Was this useful? Is this relevant to your mission? Is it timely? So there it is, guys. There's the entire document. We read it top to bottom. We went over its ludicrousy. I want to encourage people that are new to this. I'm putting out 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 videos a day sometimes. This is the first video I did, but it's over an hour long. We're going to get at least 2, 3, maybe even 4 more out today. I've got a lot of documentation on Epstein currently that nobody else has. And I'm going to be going through that as well. Hopefully doing the Guthrie Roberts versus Ghislaine Maxwell deep dive today. So make sure that you're subscribed, you're thumbing it up, you're ringing the bell for notifications. And guys, if you can do more than join the Burmese Brigade, I would really appreciate it. It keeps me going. Who knows how long I'll be on these platforms with FBI documents like this out there. $5, $10, $15. It means the world to me. It allows me to do this 7 days a week and be a nonpartisan voice that's not about left or right, Democrat or Republican, conservative or liberal, but about reality and love and bringing this country back to where it needs to be. Again, a reformation of the Constitution and Bill of Rights, not a revolution, not some extremist, idyllic nonsense, but reality. So with that being said, guys, I thank all of you for joining me, and I will see you later today on the flip side.